Yeah. Hello, it's Destination Uri, the morning program, reaching out all across the spaceship that we call home, the planet Earth. I have two good people with me, Roisin and Eamon Farrell from the Southern Health Trust, yes? And we're talking strokes here this morning. We're talking about recovery from, we're talking about the process that is gone through by people who have been impaired by strokes, and new technology that's going to help us. Well, yeah, I take. Am I wise taking 75 milligrams of aspirin every day?
Well, that would be your doctor, that would be the GP or your consultant.
Well, normally I would tell him it's doing me the world of good and leave it at that, you know.
Yeah.
But so listen to me. Where are we going with this story on strokes? What's the put flesh on the bones of the press release I've got?
I suppose that the key to it would be that our population across the Southern Trust, particularly in the over 65, is increasing at a rapid rate. We're victims of our own success in medicine, if you like, because people are living longer with long-term conditions. Our lifestyle contributes to a lot of them, and stroke particularly is a very devastating occurrence for people in their lives.
Hugely frightening prospect, because you know you're going to go, you're gone.
And very debilitating.
Yeah.
And particularly within the Newry and Mourne, we would have about 200 strokes a year.
Yeah.
Some can be prevented. And
what prevents them?
Well, Eamon's the expert.
Eamon, are you a medical person?
I'm actually a physiotherapist by background. And
you physiotherapy our brains and make sure we're all right and don't get strokes.
Well, hopefully. And as I say, anything we can do to prevent a stroke is going to be beneficial. So
like
we're talking about lifestyle changes. We're talking about
what does that mean?
People who smoke.
I don't smoke. I've never smoked in my life.
Well, that's good.
I would take maybe 2 bottles of wine in a week, red wine.
Well, alcohol. If your overuse of alcohol, that will increase the prevalence of stroke as well.
Yeah.
Diet plays a big part, and people who take a lot of salt in their diet, that increase the risk of stroke. So eating sort of fresh fruit and vegetables will decrease the risk of stroke. As well as that, there's the medical complications. So anyone who's got high blood pressure, anyone who there's a condition called atrial fibrillation. Which
I heard about this.
Yes, it's an irregular heartbeat, and basically, when you're with your GP, they can check that by doing a pulse check, and if needs be, then an ECG to check that. But by getting treatment for that, you can vastly reduce the risk of stroke within your lifetime.
I'm right in thinking that you people and GPs and specialists, you're not mind readers. People have to be proactive in being aware of their own bodies, of their own health, and observe changes, observe things they don't think's right, and then go and ask. Is that
right? That's right. Yeah. And also, I mean, there are many things that people can do, as Eamon has said, to prevent such a stroke and so on happening. Because the high salt it contributes to about a third of strokes, and
so
high blood pressure. So high blood pressure is a major risk factor.
It's as plain as the nose in your face, really, because if you're pumping blood at a high pressure through your capillaries and whatever, it's going to go sometime. Bing bong, you're gone.
That's right. Yeah.
And we have the different types of stroke. I mean, there's the ischemic stroke, which is basically where you get a clot in the brain, but there's also the hemorrhagic stroke, which means you get a bleed within the brain. So
which is the better one to get?
Neither are good to get, but as I say, the higher prevalence would be there's about 85% of strokes are actually the clot, which is the ischemic stroke.
And can you bust the clot?
You can, and that's what we're talking about. And there's been a huge publicity campaign around the FAST campaign, which is your face falling on one side, pierced, or they're unable to smile. If there's weakness in the arm and they're unable to hold their arm above their heads for a long period, if their speech becomes slurred, it's important to ring 999. And the importance of getting to the emergency department very quickly is important, because you can get a new drug, which is a thrombolytic drug, which helps to bust the clot, and that can reduce the impact of the stroke.
So any hint at all of anything like this?
Definitely.
999.
Definitely.
And if you're taken by ambulance to Daisy Hill A&E, can they administer this injection?
If it's appropriate.
No, but I mean, that's the one. Your stroke, you're talking about, to bust the clot.
And as I said, Daisy Hill and the Southern Trust have the best door-to-needle. It's measured in door-to-needle time, how quickly you get from the hospital door to actually getting the drug.
That's interesting.
And they have the highest percentage of people who meet the 1 hour target across the region in Northern Ireland. So it's been looked at as a centre of excellence in terms of thrombolytic care.
If I start going down at this moment now, if I start feeling I'm wrong, this is not good, 999, it's now 10 past 10, by 10 past 11, if it's appropriate, I'll have been given the injection.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, yes.
Wow.
And I
Always
mean, our
so.
consultants are excellent. We
sure, I
are
know them.
very,
They're
very
great
lucky.
people.
We have excellent consultants working with us.
And just as some of them are retiring and moving on,
Yeah.
equally good younger people are coming in.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Very,
Yeah.
very motivated
Absolutely.
and very skilled, very knowledgeable.
Absolutely.
And not
we-
just the consultant team, but you know, the nurses and you know,
Absolutely.
all of
Yeah.
the team within
Yes.
the hospital and across community sites. We've got highly specialised staff who treat stroke all the time.
Yes.
And the outcomes for stroke patients within the Southern Trust are very good.
good.
So yeah.
Yeah,
so
because people
it's important.
sometimes think it's the end of the road, you know.
And it really isn't. I mean, it is devastating and has a huge impact, but a lot of people do make full recoveries and get
Yeah.
back to living independently and
Yeah.
you know, being able to manage their own condition, which is very important for people with stroke.
And I suppose this is where we've come to, Rowan, with the technology. We have developed a community team in the last, probably from about 2008, where we have a community stroke team. Who look after people once they're discharged from hospital. And that consists of social workers, nurses, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, rehab workers. So they're very, and speech and language therapists.
Yes.
And we saw, because the increase of people with stroke, the increase in the older population, we have to find new ways of being able to provide the services for the demand. For the
Is that
extra
video
demand.
conferencing thing part of what you're talking about? What is that about?
That's what it is. Our speech and language therapist is able to video conference the patient and provide the therapy. There's a high-tech Zoom where they can actually do a lot of the exercises that are required for people with speech difficulties.
So the person with a speech difficulty, he can go on camera.
That's right.
And that's linked through to the specialist.
Absolutely.
And for a half an hour, there can be a consultative experience.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's great.
It's really.
I think the biggest problem we have with community services in this area is the rural, you know, the amount of rural areas within the Southern Trust. So the amount of time that's taken up by staff actually travelling between patients is huge.
Absolutely.
And we have such a limited resource for speech and language therapy.
You want to make the best use of it.
We want to make the best
But
use of it.
is that internet based, or how does it work?
It's actually it's myself and Roisin, we're trying to get the implemented it's
Transnational,
telemedicine solution.
But how is the signal transmitted?
It would be
you're-
through Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yes, it is
would be
internet-y
Wi-Fi,
type
yes.
things.
So
Yeah.
the patient needs to have that and needs to have their computer set up for it.
Yes.
But in the length of time that, say, potentially a speech therapist would have to travel to Kilkeel to see a patient, for example, she could possibly treat 2 patients.
Absolutely.
And come back. So it means for the patient that they're getting extra therapy in the week.
Yeah.
They also do get their face-to-face with the speech and language.
Yes.
It doesn't do away with
No,
that.
because,
But it just means they can get some additional support.
Face to face, I think of the deformity of face post-stroke. Is it possible to come back from that? And the general debility of arms and muscles, I know it's an impossible question, but in your experience, is there an optimism for recovery?
There is. It depends obviously on the severity of the stroke and the site of the stroke. You know, where in the brain the stroke occurs, and that'll depend on what effect it has on you know, on the functions of the body. So whether it affects your movement, your speech, your upper limb function, but there are good recovery rates for that. And as I say, the specialist input, getting to the stroke unit early and being admitted directly to a stroke unit, then discharge, smooth discharge from hospital and follow on within the community. And as I say, we have highly specialised staff now in the community. You know, that has developed over the last, within Uri and Mourne, it actually, they had the first community stroke service, which started in 2006, 2007. So they are highly specialised staff. The staff only treat people with stroke. So there are very good outcomes, and people can, through speech and language therapy, you're talking about, you know, the facial, the droop of the face. You know, through exercise and re-education, people do
but
make a recovery.
that hour is important, yes?
Definitely, the first hour could be the most important.
And when you say it's an hour from pick-up door to needle, now, say for instance, that's Craigavon we're talking about.
No,
Daisy Hill.
Absolutely,
Now, what's the situation if we lose Daisy Hill? To Craigavon is the stroke centre.
No,
Daisy Hill can still do the immediate intervention.
Still can,
and that's where the stroke person would be taken first.
Absolutely.
Stroke person, ambulance, Daisy Hill, injection if appropriate, day saved. And then thereafter, if the stroke unit in the future has gone to Craigavon, thereafter transferred there as necessary.
Yeah, once they've stabilised,
Yeah.
and they're sort of saying with it, probably within 24 hours they would be transferred on to the stroke unit.
So our politicians need to just be waking up and realise that it's not the end of the world that the stroke unit should be going to Craigavon. It's still going to be treated. The stroke is still going to be treated at Daisy Hill when it occurs.
Absolutely.
And then, once things are stabilised, made safe, at another moment, transferred.
Unit.
Off you go.
And
to me, that's the best of all worlds.
All the evidence from the experts would say that a specialist unit, concentrated, it's very difficult to divide your resources across 2, 3, well, actually at the moment it's across 4 sites. So if we're concentrated, but the emergency treatment will continue at Daisy Hill.
Emergency then, and then people from the 4 sites,
yes,
they would converge, if it came about.
If it comes about, that's
they would converge on Craigavon, where the very highest tech facilities would be available. That aren't available on the 4 existing sites at the moment.
They're available to a degree, but they would be concentrated where you've got all the expertise. It's like the cancer centres, of excellence and the brain injury in
sense,
Belfast.
Doesn't it? Sure, listen, if we were in Dallas or Chicago, it'd be an hour and a half before we got anywhere. So you people are bringing us great news today and great reassurance indeed.
As well as the link up with the speech and language, we also, for people coming home from hospital with stroke who have blood pressure, we also do telemedicine, telehealth.
What's that? Telehealth. I like the sound of it.
We have been very, very keen to develop services for people, and we're all going to need it, Rowan.
Listen,
we're all going
excuse me, I'm 70, so I know I need it. Yeah.
We have a vested interest in good services.
You guys get the good stuff in there if you're growing older, I tell you. Yeah.
So, the telehealth is where people can do their daily vital signs in their own home. And after a stroke, we would be, the specialist nurse particularly will monitor blood pressure, pulse and so on. And the person does that goes to the specialist nurse on a daily basis, and she can adjust medicines. Until she gets the levels right to keep the blood pressure stable. We also do it for our respiratory teams, for our diabetes teams.
Respiratory teams are the breathing, the sucking it in and blowing it out job.
That's right, yes. So all those teams have come to Newry more and are in the community.
We're doing all right.
Well, we have 4,000 plus patients in the community. We have a hospital at home in the community every day. Yeah, should we,
to some extent, more self-medicating? An awful lot of this stuff is brought on by ourselves, the way we live. The big problem of the hole halfway between your nose and your chin, where you're bucketing the grub into you and it's full of salt. Somebody once said in the supermarket, she went up to the manager, "Could you tell me where I could find the quarter-pound sugars, please?" And the man said, "Ah, yes, madam, over in the Coca-Cola can."
But I think generally the public are becoming more aware and are keen to do something. I think, it's just awareness and education
and I do think when we're talking about stroke, the Trust have been working very closely with the voluntary agencies, and we have good partnership working with especially Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke and the Stroke Association. So following statutory input, following the input of our staff, and whenever we're withdrawing the services and pulling out, that there is follow-on, there's moving on service which has been developed with Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke, which is an exercise and education programme, and also family support, stroke family support. And with the Stroke Association for people with speech problems, they have also got a programme that's set up which is speech and language therapy led, which means that people aren't being left, once the services from the Trust finish, they're not being left completely on their own. It's about empowering them to manage their own condition.
Absolutely.
Improving self-efficacy and sort of allowing them to sort of reintegrate back into the community again.
A few years ago I did some work, I mentioned to you, with the Northern Ireland Dysphasia Society. People, dysphasia, out of phase, recovering from strokes and all kinds of head injuries, blah, blah, blah. But those people found themselves going out on expeditions to fly fish. They went, pursued their old hobbies, and they were brought back from the edge of oblivion.
We have some really successful stories now, some really good outcomes for people with stroke. And back into education, back to the workforce.
Fantastic.
It's really, really good news, yes.
And we're looking to sort of shift people's perception, because sometimes people do feel that unless they're in hospital, they're not getting the quality service that they do need. But
I know you can't say this, but I can. Go to hospital, you'll come out sicker than you went in, with MRSA and all the rest of it. But I know you can't say that.
There are risks to being in hospital, but it's more to do with the level of service that you do get. And within the community, the services have been built. and now we can provide an excellent service in the community. So
we're
trying to get people home as quickly as possible, because we know in their own environment they will react to the treatment better and can actually have better outcomes. So it's very important for us to get people out of the hospital setting as quickly as possible.
Well, I want to say to you with great enthusiasm that I'm delighted that we have opened up our avenue of communication, Destination Newry and the Southern Trust. It's a joy to have you coming in here. It's now developing on a regular basis. We have people from Daisy Hill, we have people from Craigavon, all over. So we continue to be here as your servant, and we want to be your partner.
That. We work very closely with our colleagues in both hospitals. We're all one large organisation, and I mean the hospital rely on us to keep people at home and to take people home early, so we're continually communicating and working together and developing services together. So we appreciate the opportunity to actually tell people about
it's your gig always, and we're only a telephone call away. The only sin is that you don't come back. We insist you come back.
We would be happy to come back anytime.
So we'll make the contacts. We have Sarah upstairs as our researcher. You can go to Sarah, you can go to me, Rowan Hand. So look, do keep in touch.
We've lots of new developments coming, Rowan.
We want to hear about them.
Hospital at home, rapid response services, etc.
The only trouble is no one ever brings me grapes at home. That's the only thing. If I'm in
hospital, if we're invited
grapes.
Back, and we'll bring grapes.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's great. But then you would do what they do in hospital. You'd sit there and eat them all. That's what you do. Listen, it's so good to see you. I've had Roisin Toner with me, Eamon Farrell from the Southern Area Trust. Great things are happening in the world of stroke prevention and stroke management and stroke care generally. And it's exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting.
Definitely.
We're at the cutting edge, so to speak. Great.
Important for all of us.
Tell me about it, I know. Listen, lovely to see you.
Thank you very much.
We're going to play you some music.
For the opportunity.
No, come back, come back. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
No problem.
All the best.
Thank you.